Hey y'all, I'm going to skip to chapter 4 in this book because this one was mind blowing for me. And let me explain this before I go into it. After my near death experience, the first people who knew about this was my family. So you can imagine my family being flabbergasted, scared, and uncertain what was going to happen because I stopped breathing. Nobody knew what was going to happen. And the ones who weren't around me, when they finally heard about it, it was so scary. You can imagine, people are just happy to hear that you come back. But here's the problem. I came back a little bit different, a little bit more aware. So my parents especially and my siblings were very concerned. I think they were concerned about my mental capability. Why is she coming back? She's telling us stories of meeting with angels. She's telling us stories of beings in the angelic realm, showing her what the world's going to be like, what we need to change to, the things that we need to start focusing on, loving on ourselves. And I'm telling them about these life reviews that I got to see. And I understood during my near death experience, which is what they showed me, is that the big grandeur things that we do in this life that we say, oh, this is so noticeable, those aren't the things that God judge you on. But every single thing, every moment that you choose to withhold love from any situation, any person, anything, everything is recorded. And I found that out and I realized, oh my gosh, every time I saw a clip or a scene while I was seeing my life review, I was the one judging myself. I kept thinking to myself, I could have answered that person better. I could have handled that better. I really could have helped that person. And I was the one judging myself, and I found it very interesting. And the things that I've been exposed to since my near death experience has made me look on life in a completely different way. I grasp life every day in my breath, in the thoughts that I hold. I am so cautious. And this, my mother had the hardest time understanding what I was talking about. She did not understand it because we are taught in the Christian faith that the living has nothing to do with the dead. But the person who met me in my near death experience was my grandmother, my mother's mother, who had passed when I was 13 years old. This happened when I was 41. So imagine how many years ago she passed away, and my mother couldn't put it together. Many people couldn't put it together. I've told friends who never talked to me again because I told them about my near death experience. And I felt a little bit tarnished, like, oh my gosh, I did this thing and now everybody's alienating me. But now I'm speaking my truth because I find that many people might experience this and don't know how to deal with it because you're from this faith and you don't know how to make them understand that what you're saying is really off love. So, anyway, I was having issues trying to explain to my mom, and I remember one day I was talking to her, and one of my guides came through and gave me this visual. And this is why I have a chapter 4 in this book. The name is The House with Many Rooms. And the way he showed me, I tried to put it in words, although it's a very poor rendition of it, to explain to my mother what God really is and what God represents. So I hope this does the same for you, and it might clear up any doubts that you may have to understand the enormity of the godness that we all deserve. Okay? So let's go. This is chapter 4, The House with Many Rooms, in my book, On My Way to Meet God. I once received a beautiful explanation from a vision I received to explain to my mother the things that I was experiencing. She was concerned about me, and rightfully so. It is not every day someone almost dies and comes back to tell a story of angels, life reviews, and a new explanation of the meaning of life. The angel took me to a big white mansion, and he said, imagine God as a grand mansion. Not the kind you'd see on the hills with pillars and glass, but one that stretched across time, belief, and being. A house with many rooms. And visually, I could see this big white mansion. And then he took me inside, and there were thousands of rooms. Each room was built by someone with a vision of who God is. One room was built by religion, wrapped in rules and rituals. Another was built by culture, layered in tradition and pride. Yet another was built by pain, a survival room where people locked God away behind what they thought or what they had endured. Some rooms were adorned with stained glass and scripture. Others were filled with silence, incense, or chants, and some had nothing but a cheer and tears. Each one a sincere attempt to contain the infinite, to understand what can't be boxed. But here's what they showed me on the way to meet God. God was never the room. God was always the breath between the walls. The angel brought me further away and asked, "Can you feel God outside this mansion?" And I knew the answer was yes. So God was not only existing in that mansion, was he? I thought to myself. He said, "Look around," and I could see the beautiful skies. Now I was taken outside of this mansion, and I could see the hills, the valleys, the mountains, the energetic rivers and streams. And as I drifted further away from this huge mansion, the angel said, "Can you contain God as far as your eyes can see?" And I could see just so many things appearing. And I said, "No, God cannot be contained." The angel smiled and said, "Go tell them to remember that in every conscious breath is God, and in everything, everywhere, and everyone." See, the lesson from this is people spend lifetimes believing that by staying loyal to one room, one belief system, one set of laws, one language of prayer, they will somehow be made worthy or more worthy to meet God. But it's not the worthiness that God seeks, it's the truth and the openness. We try to contain God to feel in control, as if wrapping him in a doctrine or experience will somehow make him more real, like more reachable. But all we're really doing is building walls between each other and between ourselves and the God within. I was shown that every time we withhold in the name of being right, we close the door on one of those rooms. Every time we judge someone for worshiping differently, for dressing differently, or for believing differently, we forget that the house has many rooms. God walks through them all. And perhaps the greatest room of all is the one we never enter, the one within ourselves. Because to know God is not to study him, it's to remember that he lives in us, that we carry the divine blueprint in our breath, in our being, in our becoming. God consciousness begins with self-awareness. It grows when you turn inward instead of outward. It expands when we love, not because we were told to, but because we recognize ourselves in each other. I now know that meeting God isn't an event, it's an awakening. And the door to that house has many rooms. To open the moment, it opens the moment you say yes. Yes to God. Yes to love. I leave this here today because there's so much more nuggets in here. It's a beautiful book. Go through your days, your life, first of all, by loving yourself. Loving yourself is a representation of loving God. You can't say you love God if you don't love every single part of you. And when you do that, it becomes so tangible, it becomes so infectious that people naturally love you too, because you are now emitting a light of love and truth. Speak your truth. Be within the realms of love and light. Be the lighthouse. Boots on the ground for God. So the person that you see coming down the street and the thought comes to you to just smile. Just smile. You're being boots on the ground for God. And the next person who smiles at you, even a stranger, just think to yourself, is that you, God? Thank you for reminding me that I am worthy. Get your copy of this book. It's a good read. I will see you in the next video. Bye.